A friend of mine who was an officer invited me for a ride along. As we were driving along, he told me, I've been a cop for almost 20 years now. I can follow anyone, and I mean anyone, for just 1 mile down the road, and I can find something I can cite them for. I said, prove it. So he started following the next guy he saw. After a mile, he said, I can't believe it. He didn't do a single thing wrong. I'm gonna pull him over and let him know. He pulls the guy over, goes up to him and says, Sir, I'm sorry I pulled you over. I just wanted to compliment you. I followed you for a while and not once did you speed, change lanes without signaling, or do anything else deserving of a citation. I rarely see this, so I wanted to thank you for your safe driving. The guy looks up at him and replies, well, you've got to be careful when you're drunk. Three friends are in a hotel room in Soviet Russia. The first two men open a bottle of vodka, while the third is tired and goes straight to bed. He is unable to sleep, however, as his increasingly drunk friends tell political jokes loudly. After a while, the tired man gets frustrated and walks downstairs for a smoke. He stops in the lounge and asks the receptionist to bring tea to their room in 5 minutes. The man walks back into the room, joins the table, leans towards a power outlet, and speaks into it. Comrade Major, we want some tea in room 62, please. His friends laugh at the joke until there is a knock on the door. The receptionist brings a teapot. His friends fall silent and pale, horrified of what they just witnessed. The party is dead and the man goes to sleep. After a good night's rest, the man wakes up and notices his friends are gone. Surprised, he walks downstairs and asks the receptionist where they went. The nervous receptionist whispers that the KGB came and took them before dawn. The man is horrified. He wonders why he was spared. The receptionist responds, well, Comrade Major did quite like your tea joke. A pregnant woman is hit by a car. She is sent into a coma for 1 year. She wakes up, no longer pregnant, screaming, Doctor, doctor, where is my baby? The doctor replies, calm down, your babies are fine. You had twins, a girl and a boy. We gave them to your brother to watch while you were in the hospital. She says, my brother? That guy is a moron. Why would you do that? I'm sorry, ma'am. We had no choice. There was nobody else. He even took the liberty of naming them. What? She says. What did he name my daughter? He named her Denise, says the doctor. Oh, well, that's not so bad. What did he name my son? To which the doctor replies, he named him Denephew. A woman one day takes a hike around the forest by her house to take some time off from people. She stumbles upon a teapot, grabs it, and obviously rubs it. A genie appears. Hello, lady, you've released me from my trap. Now I shall grant you 3 wishes, but there's a catch. Whatever I give you, your husband will get 3 times larger. The woman looks at the genie and says, I want $1 billion. The genie responds, as you wish, but your husband will get 3 billion. The woman continues, I want a beautiful castle. The genie says, as you wish, but your husband will get 3 beautiful castles, and they will be larger than yours. The woman then stops and thinks for a moment before claiming her third and final wish and says, now give me 1 tiny, tiny, tiny little heart attack. A lady went into the pharmacy, right up to the pharmacist, looked straight into his eyes, and said, I would like to buy some cyanide. The pharmacist asked, why in the world do you need cyanide? The lady, I need it to poison my husband. The pharmacist's eyes got big, and he exclaimed, Lord have mercy, I can't give you cyanide to kill your husband. That's against the law. I'll lose my license. They'll throw both of us in jail. All kinds of bad things will happen. Absolutely not. You cannot have any cyanide. The lady reached into her purse and pulled out a picture of her husband, in bed with the pharmacist's wife. The pharmacist looked at the picture and replied, "Oh, well now, that's different. You didn't tell me you had a prescription." A 55-year-old lady suddenly started learning to swim instead of her usual routine of going to a temple. Everyone was curious and asked her, "Why the change in your interest in swimming nowadays?" The lady, with a look of helplessness, replied, "Whenever my son and daughter-in-law quarrel with each other, my daughter-in-law always asks my son, 'If your mom and I fall into water, whom will you save first?' And because I do not want to put my son in a difficult position, I am learning to swim." A few days later, husband and wife were quarreling again, and the daughter-in-law unreasonably asked, "Now tell me, if your mom and I fall into water, whom will you save first?" Husband replied, "I don't have to get into the water because my mom knows how to swim. She will save you." Wife refused to relent. "No, you have to jump into the water and have to save one of us. Whom will you save?" Husband replied, "Then you will surely die because I don't know how to swim, and my mom will definitely save me first." A little girl says to her mother, "Mummy, when you were away at work, a strange lady came around." "Not now," says Mummy. "Wait until Daddy gets home." So they wait until Daddy gets home, and then Mummy says, "Now, dear, what were you saying about Daddy and the strange lady?" And Daddy starts to say something, but Mummy says, "You keep quiet. I'll be talking to my attorney in the morning. Carry on, dear." "Well," says the little girl, "Daddy told me to stay downstairs while they went upstairs, but I followed them without Daddy seeing me, and I saw them hugging and kissing at the top of the stairs. Then they went into your bedroom and shut the door, but I went up and looked through the keyhole." "Clever girl," purrs Mummy. "What could you see through the keyhole?" "Well," says the little girl, "I saw them hugging and kissing some more, and then they started to take each other's clothes off, and they carried on until they had nothing on. And then the lady got on the bed, and Daddy got on top of her." "Yes," says Mummy, "and then what happened?" "And then they did what you and Uncle Jack did when Daddy was in Vancouver last year," says the little girl confidently. A lady is walking down the street and sees a parrot in the window of a pet store. She stops to admire the bird. The parrot says to her, "Hey lady, you are really ugly." Well, the lady is furious. She storms past the store to her work. The next day, she sees the same parrot in the window, and when the parrot sees her, it says, "Hey lady, my God, are you ugly?" The lady is so livid that she marches into the store and threatens to sue the store and have the bird killed. The store manager apologizes profusely and promises the bird won't say it again. The next day, when the lady walks past the store, the parrot says to her, "Hey lady, lady." She pauses, scowls with an icy stare, and says, "Yes?" And the parrot says, "You know." A very attractive woman goes up to the bar in a quiet rural pub. She gestures alluringly to the bartender, who comes over immediately. When he arrives, she seductively signals that he should bring his face closer to hers. When he does so, she begins to gently caress his full beard. "Are you the manager?" she asks, softly stroking his face with both hands. "Actually, no," the man replies. "Can you get him for me? I need to speak to him," she says, running her hands beyond his beard and into his hair. "I am afraid I can't," the bartender breathes. "Is there anything I can do?" "Yes, there is. I need you to give him a message," she continues, slyly popping a couple of her fingers into his mouth and allowing him to suck them gently. "What should I tell him?" the bartender manages to say. "Tell him," she whispers, "there is no toilet paper or hand soap in the ladies' room." Frank, the farmer, had a nagging wife. She made his life miserable. The only real peace he got was when he was out in the field plowing. One day, while in the field, Frank's wife brought him his lunch. Then, while he quietly ate, she berated him with a constant stream of nagging and complaining. Suddenly, Frank's old donkey kicked up his back legs, striking her in the head and killing her instantly.
At the funeral, the priest noticed that when the women offered their sympathy, Frank would nod his head up and down. But when the men came up and spoke quietly to him, he would shake his head from side to side. After the murderers left, the priest approached Frank and asked, "Why did you nod your head up and down to all the women and shake it from side to side to all the men?" "Well," Frank replied, "the women all said how nice she looked, and her dress was so pretty, so I agreed with nodding my head up and down. And all the men asked, 'Is that donkey for sale?'"
A farmer's wife comes out into the field as he's plowing and begins to nag at him. Moments later, one of the mules pulling the plow kicks her right in the head, killing her. After the funeral, the priest walks up to the bereaved man and asks, "I noticed that many people approached you and offered their condolences. Whenever a woman would approach you and speak, I could see you smiling and nodding your head up and down in affirmation. But whenever a man would speak with you, you'd frown and shake your head no. Why was there such a difference in your reaction?" "Well, Father," the man replied, "all the women kept remarking about what a wonderful woman my wife was, or how beautiful she looked, and all I could do was agree." "But what about the men?" asked the priest. "Well," the man answered, "they kept asking me if I'd be willing to sell them that mule." A cowboy approaches this farmer and asks for a job. The farmer tells the cowboy that he has no vacancies, yet if the cowboy could do something special, he might consider it. The cowboy says, "Well, sir, I understand animals." "Huh," the farmer says, "how many times have I heard that before?" In this moment, a cow moves from behind a shed. "So, what's it saying, cowboy?" the farmer asks with a wicked grin. "Well, sir, the cow says she has some feathers on her udder, and the tickle is almost unbearable for her." They go have a look, and it's true. The farmer removes the feathers, and the cow stops mooing. At that moment, a horse is neighing. "So, what's his problem?" the farmer asks. "Well, sir, the horse says there's a nail in the hind right hoof that sticks out and really bothers him." They go have a look, and the cowboy was right again. At that moment, a sheep in the stable baws loudly. The farmer explodes. "Will you just shut up? It was only once and I was totally stoned." Farmer Murphy is working on his fence when a British tourist startles him by honking his car's horn. "I say," asked the Brit, "does this road go to the castle?" "I do believe it does. Just keep on as you were." Farmer Murphy goes back to his business. About 10 minutes later, the Brit comes back up the road. "I say, my good man, there's a stream crossing this road. Is it safe to cross it in my car?" "Right, I should think you'll be fine." And the Brit drives off again. Farmer Murphy goes back to his business. He's working away and slowly becomes aware of a sloshing, dripping, stomping sound getting louder. He looks up, and it's the Brit. He does not look happy. "I say," the Brit rants, "you told me it was safe to cross that stream." "I did that." "Well, I nearly drowned. That stream is deep enough to completely cover my car." Farmer Murphy has himself a smile and replies, "That's odd. It only comes halfway up on the ducks." A young girl writing a paper for school approached her father and asked, "Dad, what's the difference between anger and exasperation?" The father smiled and said, "It's mostly a matter of degree. Let me show you what I mean." With that, the father went to the telephone, dialed a random number, and said to the man who answered, "Hello, is Melvin there?" The man replied, "There's no one living here named Melvin. Why don't you learn to look up numbers before you dial?" The father turned to his daughter and said, "See, that man wasn't very happy with our call. He was probably busy with something and we annoyed him. Now watch this." The father dialed the number again and asked, "Hello, is Melvin there?" "Now look here," came the heated reply. "You just called this number and I told you there's no Melvin here. You've got a lot of guts calling again." The receiver slammed down hard. The father turned to his daughter and said, "That was anger. Now let me show you exasperation." He dialed the same number once more, and when a furious voice roared, "Hello?" The father calmly replied, "Hello, this is Melvin. Have there been any calls for me?" One quiet night, the boss was having an affair with the maid. As things heated up, he whispered to her, "You're so much better than my wife." The maid, trying to hide her smirk, replied, "Yes, sir, I know." Startled, the boss paused and asked, "Wait, how do you know that?" She looked at him with a sly smile and said, "Well, your driver said the same thing to me yesterday." John and his girlfriend Mary decide to become bank robbers. Mary does the actual robbing at gunpoint inside the banks, while John waits outside as the getaway driver. They are initially successful with a string of heists that make headlines, and they become folk heroes, until one day their luck runs out and they get caught. At trial, the judge condemns Mary to 10 years in prison, while John gets 2 years. However, once they get to their respective prisons, they discover that due to a clerical error, John will be serving 10 years and Mary only 2. Despite her insistence, John convinces Mary to keep quiet about it. After 2 years, Mary gets out, and she continues to visit John faithfully every month, and they exchange letters and phone calls regularly for the remainder of his 10 years. Finally, after he does his time, John gets out and is joyfully reunited with Mary. They get married and move to a different state and start anew, leaving their life of crime behind. They raise a family with children and grandchildren, and eventually reach old age after having lived a happy marriage. At their 50th wedding anniversary party, the entire family and friends are gathered. A great celebration is had, with many laughs and stories recounting their life together. The conversation turns to the secrets to a happy marriage. One of the guests asks Mary why she decided to stick with John while he was in prison, despite all of the hardships. Mary answered, "Well, you know you have found the one when you finish each other's sentences." Air Force One crashed on a farm in Nebraska. Panic-stricken, the local sheriff mobilized and descended on the farm in force. When they got there, the disaster was clear. The aircraft was totally destroyed, with only a burned hole left smoldering in a tree line that bordered a farm. The sheriff and his men entered the smoking mess, but did not find the remains of anyone, including the president. They spotted a lone farmer plowing a field not too far away, as if nothing at all had happened. They hurried over to the man's tractor. "Hank," the sheriff yelled, panting and out of breath, "did you see this terrible accident happen?" "Yep, sure did," the farmer said, cutting off his motor. "Do you realize that that is the airplane of the President of the United States?" "Yep." "Were there any survivors?" "Nope, they're all killed, straight out. I buried them all myself. Took me most of the morning." "Oh my God, President Trump is dead?" "Well," the farmer grumbled, restarting his tractor, "he kept saying he wasn't, but you know what a liar he is." The relatives gathered in the waiting room where their family member lay gravely ill. Finally, the doctor came in looking tired and somber. "I'm afraid I'm the bearer of bad news," he said as he surveyed the worried faces. "The only hope left for your loved one at this time is a brain transplant. It's an experimental procedure, very risky, but it is the only hope. Insurance will cover the procedure, but you will have to pay for the brain yourselves." The family members sat silent as they absorbed the news. After a great length of time, someone asked, "Well, how much does a brain cost?" The doctor quickly responded, $5,000 for a female brain and $200 for a male brain. The moment turned awkward. Women in the room tried not to smile, avoiding eye contact with the men, but some actually smirked. A woman unable to control her curiosity blurted out the question everyone wanted to ask. Why is the female brain so much more? The doctor smiled at the childish innocence and explained to the entire group, "It's just standard pricing procedure. We have to mark down the price of the male brains because they've actually been used." This is a story about a couple who had been happily married for years. The only friction in their marriage was the husband's habit of farting loudly every morning when he awoke. The noise would wake his wife, and the smell would make her eyes water and make her gasp for air. Every morning she would plead with him to stop ripping them off because it was making her sick.
He told her he couldn't stop it and that it was perfectly natural. She told him to see a doctor. She was concerned that one day he would blow his guts out. The years went by and he continued to rip them out. Then one Christmas Day morning, as she was preparing the turkey for dinner and he was upstairs sound asleep, she looked at the innards, neck, gizzard, liver, and all the spare parts, and a malicious thought came to her. She took the bowl and went upstairs, where her husband was sound asleep, and gently pulling the bed covers back, she pulled back the elastic waistband of his underpants and emptied the bowl of turkey guts into his shorts. Sometime later, she heard her husband awaken with his usual trumpeting, followed by a blood-curdling scream and the sound of frantic footsteps as he ran into the bathroom. The wife could hardly control herself as she rolled on the floor, laughing, tears in her eyes. After years of torture, she reckoned she had gotten him back pretty good. About 20 minutes later, her husband came downstairs in his blood-stained underpants with a look of horror on his face. She bit her lip as she asked him what was the matter. He said, "Honey, you were right all these years. You have warned me and I didn't listen to you." "What do you mean?" asked his wife. "Well, you always told me that one day I would end up farting my guts out, and today it finally happened. But by the grace of God, some Vaseline and 2 fingers, I think I got most of them back in." A woman walks into Bass Pro Shop to buy a fishing rod and reel for her grandson's birthday. Not knowing much about fishing gear, she randomly picks one and heads to the counter. Behind the register stands a store associate wearing dark sunglasses. "Excuse me, sir," she says. "Can you tell me anything about this rod and reel?" The man smiles. "Ma'am, I'm completely blind, but if you drop it on the counter, I can tell you everything just by the sound." Skeptical, but curious, she sets it down. The associate tilts his head and says, "That's a 6-foot Shakespeare graphite rod with a Zebco 404 reel and 10-pound test line. A great all-around combo. And lucky for you, it's on sale this week for $20. Amazed, she exclaims, "That's incredible. You really can tell just from the sound? I'll take it." As she reaches for her purse, her credit card slips from her hand and lands on the floor. "That sounds like a MasterCard," the man notes. Impressed, she bends down to pick it up and accidentally lets out a little toot. Mortified, she freezes. But then she relaxes. He's blind, right? No way he knows it was me. The clerk rings up the sale. "That'll be $35.50, ma'am." She frowns. "Wait a minute, I thought you said it was $20. "Yes, ma'am, the rod and reel are $20, but the duck call is $11 and the bear repellent is $3.50. She pays the bill without another word.
An out-of-work mime wanders into the zoo, hoping to earn some cash as a street performer. As soon as he starts attracting a crowd, a zookeeper rushes over, grabs him, and drags him into his office. "Listen," the zookeeper says, "our most popular attraction, the gorilla, just died, and we can't afford to lose visitors. If you're willing to wear a gorilla suit and entertain the crowd until we get a real one, I'll pay you well." Desperate for work, the mime agrees. The next morning, before the zoo opens, he suits up and steps into the gorilla enclosure. To his surprise, it's the best job he's ever had. He eats, sleeps, swings on tires, and goofs off, all while drawing bigger crowds than he ever did as a mime. But after a while, he gets bored. The audience's excitement starts fading. That's when he notices people are paying more attention to the lion in the neighboring cage. Not one to be outshined, he climbs to the top of his cage, crawls across a partition, and dangles over the lion's enclosure. The furious lion growls and paces, but the crowd loves it. The zookeeper, thrilled by the attention, gives the mime a raise. Day after day, the act continues, the mime taunting, the lion raging, and the crowds growing. Then, one fateful afternoon, as he's hanging over the lion's cage, he slips. He crashes to the ground, landing right in front of the beast. The lion freezes, the crowd gasps, the mime's heart pounds as the lion gathers itself to pounce. Panicked, he scrambles to his feet and runs in circles, screaming, "Help! Help me!" The lion lunges, knocking him flat on his back. Just as he's about to scream again, the lion leans down and whispers, "Shut up, you idiot. You want to get us both fired?" An old man was walking through the desert with his donkey when he arrived at a village. The villagers welcomed him warmly, offering him food, shelter, and care for his donkey. During dinner, they served him camel milk. Surprised, he asked why they drank something so bitter. "We have no choice," said the village chief. "We've been cursed with an everlasting drought. Water is so scarce that we save every drop for our crops." The old man stroked his beard thoughtfully. "As it happens, I am one of the wise. I know how to bring rain, but first you must bring me a large bucket full of water. I need some to summon more." The villagers, desperate for relief, gathered every last drop they had. By morning, they had just enough to fill a bucket and presented it to the old man. He took the water, walked into his host's house, and shut the door. Moments later, a curious child peeked through the window and gasped, running back to alert the villagers. By the time they burst in, the old man had already finished washing his clothes and was calmly hanging them to dry. "Shame! Shame on you, old man," the below bellowed. "Our children go thirsty, and you wasted our last drop on laundry?" But just as he finished speaking, the sky darkened. Clouds gathered overhead. Moments later, rain poured down, heavy and unrelenting, lasting for 5 days straight. The village's reservoirs overflowed, their crops thrived, the people celebrated, and the old man was honored as a hero. Even the chief apologized for ever doubting him. As the old man prepared to leave, the curious child finally worked up the courage to ask, "But how did you do it? How did you bring the rain?" The old man smiled and shrugged. "Simple. It always rains when I hang my clothes to dry." Two young men appear in court after being arrested for drug use. The judge looks at them and says, "You both seem like decent young men, so I'm going to give you a second chance instead of jail time. Over the weekend, I want you to go out and convince others to stay away from drugs. On Monday, you'll report back and tell me how many people you persuaded. If you don't show results, you're going straight to jail." Monday arrives, and the judge calls the first guy forward. "How did you do?" "Well, Your Honor, I convinced 17 people to give up drugs forever." 17? That's impressive. How did you manage that?" "I used a simple diagram. I drew 2 circles like this, O, O. Then I told them the big circle is your brain before drugs, the small one is your brain after drugs." "Very clever," the judge nods approvingly. Then he turns to the second guy. "And you, how did you do?" "Your Honor, I convinced 156 people to give up drugs forever." 156? That's incredible. How on earth did you do that?" "Well, Your Honor, I used a similar diagram. I drew 2 circles like this, O, O dash. Then I pointed to the small circle and said, 'This is your sphincter before prison.'" Matt and his wife lived in the countryside. Matt was notoriously tight with money and hated spending it. One day, a fair came to the nearby town. "Let's go to the fair, Matt," his wife suggested. "We haven't been out in ages." Matt mulled it over. He knew he'd have to spend money at the fair. After a moment of thought, he finally agreed. "Fine, but I'm not spending much. We'll look around, but we won't buy anything." At the fair, they wandered around looking at all the things for sale. Matt's wife found many things she liked, but Matt wouldn't let her spend a dime. As they walked through the fairgrounds, they spotted an old, small airplane in a nearby field. A sign read, "Fun flight, $20 for 10 minutes." Matt had never been in an airplane, and he was intrigued. But he didn't want to pay for both of them, so he approached the pilot. "I've only got $20, Matt said. "Is there any chance my wife can come along for free?" The pilot, not selling many tickets, thought for a moment. "I'll make you a deal," he said. "If neither of you screams or shouts during the flight, your wife flies for free." Matt agreed, and he and his wife climbed aboard the small plane. The pilot took off, performing all kinds of stunts, loops, dives, sharp turns, and wild tricks, anything he could do to scare them. But Matt and his wife remained silent the whole time. Finally, the pilot landed and said, "Well, you both held your ground. Your wife's ride is free." Matt smiled and said, "Thanks. It wasn't easy, especially when she fell out. A local business was looking for office help and put up a sign saying, "Help wanted, must be able to type, must be good with a computer, and must be bilingual. We are an equal opportunity employer." A short time afterwards, a golden retriever dog trotted up to the window, saw the sign, and went inside. He looked at the receptionist and wagged his tail, then walked over to the sign, looked at it, and whined. Getting the idea, the receptionist got the office manager. The office manager looked at the dog and was surprised, to say the least. However, the dog looked determined, so he let him into the office. Inside, the dog jumped up on the chair and stared at the manager. The manager said, "I can't hire you. The sign says you have to be able to type." The dog jumped down, went to the typewriter, and proceeded to type out a perfect letter. He took out the page and trotted over to the manager and gave it to him, then jumped back on the chair. The manager was stunned, but then told the dog, "The sign also says you have to be good with a computer." The dog jumped down again and went to the computer. The dog proceeded to demonstrate his expertise with various programs and produced a sample spreadsheet and database and presented them to the manager. By this time, the manager was totally dumbfounded. He looked at the dog and said, "I realize that you are a very intelligent dog and have some interesting abilities. However, I still can't give you the job." The dog jumped down and went to a copy of the sign and put his paw on the part about being an equal opportunity employer. The manager said, "Yes, but the sign also says that you have to be bilingual." The dog looked at him and said, "Meow."